Cristiano Ronaldo walked through the small streets of the city. He wore a big coat and a cap covering his face. He didn't want people to recognize him. Everyone knew him as a great football player, but tonight he just wanted to walk and feel the city without cameras or fans around. As he passed by a small square, a strange feeling ran through his body. The wind was cold and he could smell rain in the air. Nearby, a group of people sat on the ground, their clothes dirty and torn. They looked sad and tired. Then Cristiano's eyes stopped on one man. The man sat against a wall, covered in old blankets. His face was thin, his beard was long, and his eyes looked empty. But there was something familiar about those eyes. Cristiano felt his heart beat faster. A memory came rushing back. He saw two boys playing football on a dusty field in Madeira, laughing, dreaming about the future. And then, one of them disappeared. Cristiano took a deep breath. He knew who this man was. Emilio. The name left his lips like a whisper. The man trembled and slowly looked up. His tired eyes grew wide with shock. He lifted his hands to cover his face as if he was ashamed. "No," Emilio said in a weak, rough voice. "I'm no one anymore, Chris." Cristiano felt his heart break. He dropped to his knees on the cold ground, forgetting everything, his fame, his success, the trophies he had won. None of that mattered now. Right now, it was just him and Emilio, his best friend, the one he thought was gone forever. "What happened to you?" Cristiano asked, his voice shaking. Emilio let out a small, sad laugh. "Life happened, and I lost." Cristiano didn't believe that. It didn't make sense. Emilio, the boy who once shared his food, who dreamed of being great, who was never afraid of anything, was now sitting here looking so weak and hopeless? "Come with me," Ronaldo said, holding out his hand. Emilio shook his head. "You don't understand. I don't deserve it." Those words hurt Cristiano more than losing any football game. But he wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not on Emilio. He looked at his old friend. Emilio's hands were shaking, maybe from the cold, maybe from something else. His clothes smelled bad, but that didn't bother Cristiano. What hurt the most was Emilio's eyes that used to shine with dreams, now filled with sadness. "Emilio, please, let me help you," Cristiano said, his voice full of emotion. Emilio looked away. "You don't understand, Chris. There's nothing left for me." Cristiano understood more than Emilio thought. And he wouldn't leave him like this. He grabbed Emilio's arm and, even though Emilio resisted, took him to a small cafe that was open all night. They sat at a table in the back. Cristiano ordered 2 hot coffees. The waiter gave Emilio a strange look, but Cristiano stared at the waiter until he walked away without saying anything. The two friends sat in silence. Cristiano waited. Finally, Emilio sighed and rubbed his tired face with his hands. "You shouldn't be here, Chris. Just forget you saw me." Cristiano shook his head. "Forget you? How could I? You were my brother." Emilio let out another sad laugh. "That was a long time ago. That boy is gone." "Then tell me what happened to him?" Cristiano asked. Emilio hesitated. His eyes filled with tears. He looked down at the table, took a deep breath, and finally started to talk. The story he told was heartbreaking. His mother, the woman who always told him to follow his dreams, died suddenly. It hurt him so much. His father, too sad to handle it, started drinking too much. He became angry and mean. The house they lived in was taken away because they had no money. His sister, his last hope, disappeared. At first, Emilio tried to fix things. He worked small jobs, saving money to get their house back. But it wasn't enough. One night, while Emilio was away, his father got too drunk and accidentally set the house on fire. Emilio barely escaped. But after that, he had no home. "After that, I just disappeared," Emilio whispered. Cristiano's chest felt tight. "And your sister?" he asked, hoping for good news. Emilio shook his head. "I never saw her again. I looked for you, Chris, but no one knew where you were. It was like you were gone too." Emilio's voice was full of pain. Cristiano had always known Emilio had a hard life, but he never knew how bad it really was. "And after that? How did you end up here?" Cristiano asked. Emilio shrugged. "One day at a time. At first, I tried to start over. But when you have nothing, people don't see you. I worked here and there, but nothing lasted. My past followed me everywhere." Cristiano felt a lump in his throat. He had thought he knew what pain was. But Emilio's pain was something different. Emilio looked up for the first time, his tired eyes full of questions. "And you?" he asked. "You became the best in the world." Cristiano looked down, feeling guilty. While he was winning trophies, scoring goals, and living his dream, Emilio was just trying to survive. I didn't know you needed me, Cristiano whispered. Emilio gave another small, sad laugh. You didn't have to, Chris. Life took us in different directions. Cristiano shook his head. I didn't abandon you, he said firmly. And he meant it. Silence filled the air. The coffee in their cups was cold. The big clock on the wall showed it was 3 a.m. But Cristiano did not leave. He would not go until he found a way to help. He looked at Emilio with serious eyes. What if I told you we could start over? He asked. Emilio gave a small, tired smile. I don't believe in that anymore. But Cristiano did. And at that moment he made a promise to himself. He would not let Emilio stay in this dark place. The cafe was quiet, but the air felt heavy, full of sadness. Cristiano Ronaldo looked at Emilio, trying to understand the pain in his story. Time passed, and Cristiano became a great football player, winning everything. But Emilio? He fell deeper and deeper into a hard life all alone. The guilt in Cristiano's heart was big. Cristiano took a deep breath. The past did not matter. What mattered was now. You can't live like this, Emilio, he said. Emilio laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. He leaned back in his chair, looking so tired. And what do you want me to do, Chris? Fly to Madrid and sit with you in a fancy place? I have nothing left. Not even my pride. Cristiano felt his throat tighten. How do you help someone who does not believe in hope? You still have me, he said without thinking. Emilio sighed, his eyes full of something Cristiano did not like, giving up. And what will you do? Put me in your big house, dress me in fancy clothes, and pretend none of this happened. Cristiano lowered his head. He did not know exactly what to do. But he knew one thing: he could not just walk away. I will give you a new chance, he said at last. Emilio let out a small, dry laugh. You think it's that easy? I lived on the streets for years. Do you know what I have seen? What did I have to do to survive? His voice cracked and he looked down. I am not the same person you once knew. Cristiano looked at Emilio's hands. They were shaking. They had scars. His fingers were bruised. Emilio was broken, not just on the outside but on the inside too. But Cristiano did not believe that Emilio was completely lost. It doesn't matter what happened before. You are still here. That means there is still time, he said. Emilio rubbed his face with his hands, trying to hide his feelings. He wanted to believe. But life had broken him so many times that hope felt dangerous. The waiter came back and asked if they wanted more coffee. Cristiano said yes. Emilio just shook his head, not looking up. You still have family, Cristiano said. Your sister, I can help you find her. Emilio's eyes went wide. You don't understand. I looked for her for years. She is gone, Chris. If she was alive, she would have found me by now. Cristiano did not believe that. He had money and power, things Emilio never had. If there was even a small chance, he would take it. Tell me her name, he said. Emilio hesitated. Part of him wanted to hope. The other part knew that hope could hurt when it disappeared. Valeria, he said softly. Cristiano repeated the name, making sure he would not forget it. I will find her. Emilio shook his head, a tiny smile on his lips. You never give up, do you? Cristiano smiled for the first time that night. I never do. But there was something else Cristiano needed to know. Emilio, who hurt you? Emilio's face changed. What do you mean? I mean your life didn't fall apart by accident. Someone did this to you. Who was it? There was a long silence. Emilio's jaw tightened. It's not that simple. Then explain it to me, Cristiano said. Emilio looked around as if he was afraid someone was listening. I made enemies without knowing. When my mother died, my father got into trouble with bad people. He owed them money, Chris. And these people never forget. When he lost everything, they came for me. Cristiano felt cold. What did they do to you? Emilio looked away. Let's just say, they made sure I would never get back up. Cristiano felt anger grow inside him. He did not know these people, but he knew one thing: he would not let them win. Tell me who they are, he said. Emilio took a deep breath. But he said nothing. Cristiano saw fear in his eyes. Emilio, trust me, he said. Emilio gave another dry laugh. Trust you? Do you think money and power can fix everything? Cristiano looked at him. I think I can try. The cafe was quiet again. The coffee was cold. The clock now showed it was almost 4 a.m. Cristiano did not know exactly how, but he knew he would do something. I will help you, Emilio. I promise. Emilio sighed. Good luck with that. But Cristiano knew this was a battle he could not lose. The silence between them was heavy. Emilio looked down, playing with his spoon. Cristiano watched him, noticing everything. his tired eyes, his shaking hands, his slumped shoulders. But what hurt Cristiano the most was that Emilio did not believe he deserved help. "You think it's over?" Cristiano asked, breaking the silence. Emilio let out a small laugh, but there was no happiness in it. "I don't think, Chris." "I know." Cristiano leaned forward. "I have seen people fall and get back up. I have seen players who lost everything but still found a way back. What happened to you does not decide who you are." Emilio looked at him, his eyes filled with doubt. "And what if I don't want to start over? What if I am too tired?" Cristiano felt pain in his chest. "How do you help someone who does not want to try?" "Then I will fight for you," he said firmly. Emilio looked at him for a long time. A tiny smile appeared, but it quickly disappeared. "You have always been like this, haven't you? Stubborn. And you have always been strong." "You just forgot that," Cristiano replied. Emilio sighed, rubbing his hands over his tired face. "It's not easy, Chris. I have no home, no money, no papers. The world erased me. I am nobody." Cristiano shook his head. "You are Emilio, my friend, and I will help you." Emilio swallowed hard. He wanted to believe in Cristiano, but it was difficult. He had been living in the dark for so long. Cristiano acted quickly. He took out his phone and sent a message to one of his trusted assistants. He asked for a hotel, clean clothes, and a hot shower for Emilio. But when he told Emilio about the hotel, Emilio's face turned pale. "I can't go to a hotel, Chris. Not like this." "What do you mean?" Emilio looked away. He seemed nervous. "There are people who know me here. People who won't like it if they see me getting help." Cristiano frowned. "What kind of people?" Emilio took a deep breath. "People who control the streets. Here you have to pay just to have a safe place to sleep. I already owe them. If they see me leaving with you, they'll think I have money. That's dangerous." Cristiano felt a lump in his throat. He knew life on the streets was hard, but he didn't know Emilio was trapped in such a bad situation. "So what can we do?" "You can't stay here." Emilio hesitated. "There's a shelter. It's not much, but it's safe. If I go there with you, maybe no one will notice." Cristiano agreed. If that was the safest choice, then they would go. The shelter was a few streets away. It was an old house with peeling paint and a rusty iron gate. Some people stood at the entrance. Some knew Emilio, others just stared at Cristiano. An old woman with gray hair and kind eyes walked up to them. "Emilio, you're back," she said. Emilio lowered his head. "Donna Teresa, just for tonight." She looked at Cristiano, then back at Emilio. She nodded. She didn't ask any questions. "Come inside," she said. Inside, the smell of hot soup filled the air. The place was simple but clean. There were beds and donated clothes. "A bath and a hot meal can do wonders," Teresa said with a smile. Emilio gave a small smile, then went to take a shower. Cristiano walked up to Teresa. "How was he before today?" She sighed. "Lost, but he was kind. He helped others when he could." Cristiano nodded. He wanted to know more about Emilio's life on the streets. As he waited, Cristiano noticed an old man watching him from across the room. The man looked at him as if trying to recognize him. The old man walked over and sat down. "You want to help Emilio?" he asked. Cristiano nodded. "I do." The man nodded slowly. "Then you need to find Valeria." Cristiano's heart started to race. "You know her?" The old man sighed. "I knew her. But if you want to know what happened, you have to look in dangerous places." Cristiano frowned. "What do you mean?" The old man looked around as if afraid someone would hear him. "Valeria disappeared. But it wasn't an accident." Cristiano's stomach twisted. "Do you know something?" The old man hesitated. "I only know that Emilio didn't lose everything by accident. Someone did this to him." Cristiano felt like he had been punched. "Who?" The old man sighed and shook his head. "You are too famous to get involved in this, kid. But if you want answers, find a man named Alvaro." Cristiano repeated the name in his mind. "Where can I find him?" The old man gave a small smile. "In places you and Emilio don't want to go." Before Cristiano could ask more, Emilio came back. Now clean and wearing fresh clothes, he looked like a different man. But his eyes were still sad. Cristiano glanced at Emilio, then at the old man who had already walked away. He knew this was just the beginning. Cristiano looked at Emilio, his wet hair dripping. He looked better, but his eyes showed pain. "How do you feel?" Cristiano asked. Emilio shrugged. "Clean. But nothing has changed. Tomorrow I'll be back on the streets." Cristiano crossed his arms. "You don't have to." "And do what, Chris? Pretend my past didn't happen?" Cristiano sighed. You still have a chance. I'm going to find your sister. Emilio's eyes widened. Valeria is dead. Cristiano shook his head. You don't know that. And I met someone who might have answers. Emilio let out a bitter laugh. Are you going to search all of Lisbon? I looked for years, Chris. If she was alive, she would have found me. And what if she couldn't? Cristiano said. What if she was trapped in something you didn't see? Emilio rubbed his face. He looked like he was trying to push away a painful thought. I don't know if I can do this again. You're not alone this time, Cristiano said. Cristiano pulled out his phone and sent a message to someone who could find information about Valeria. You need rest, he told Emilio. We'll talk tomorrow. Emilio nodded, but his eyes showed he didn't believe things would get better. That night, Cristiano couldn't sleep. His mind kept thinking about Emilio, the boy he used to know, the boy who had big dreams before everything changed. In the early morning, Cristiano's phone buzzed. A message appeared on the screen. Valeria was last seen in a dangerous part of Lisbon, a place known for human trafficking. Cristiano's blood turned cold. He got up and saw Emilio sitting in the corner drinking coffee. I found something about Valeria, Cristiano said. Emilio looked up slowly. Where? Cristiano hesitated. It's not a good place. Emilio let out a small laugh. That doesn't scare me. You don't understand, Cristiano said. If she was there, it wasn't her choice. Emilio was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up. Let's go. Now. Cristiano wasn't expecting that. Emilio, maybe I should go first. I'm not waiting here while you decide for me. If Valeria is there, I need to see it with my own eyes. Cristiano saw the determination in Emilio's face. There was no point arguing. They took a taxi to the neighborhood. It was dark and run down. The buildings looked old and the streets were narrow. People stared at them as they walked by. They stopped in front of a small dirty bar. This was the last place Valeria had been seen. Cristiano walked in first. Everyone inside stared at them. A large man with a scar on his face stood behind the bar. He crossed his arms. You're in the wrong place, the man said. Cristiano stepped forward. We're looking for Valeria. She's been here. The bartender chuckled. A lot of people come here. Why should I remember that name? Emilio tried to stay calm, but he couldn't. He shouted, She's my sister. I know she was here. The whole bar went quiet. The bartender looked at Emilio for a long time. Then he sighed and said, If you want answers, talk to Alvaro. Cristiano and Emilio looked at each other. That was the name the old man at the shelter had told them. Where can we find him? Cristiano asked. The bartender gave a small smile. That's for you to figure out. Emilio's hands curled into fists. He looked like he was about to punch the man, but Cristiano grabbed his arm. We'll find another way, Cristiano said. They walked out of the bar. The bartender's words stayed in their minds. Alvaro, Emilio whispered. Cristiano put a hand on his friend's shoulder. We'll find him. And we'll find out what happened to Valeria. Emilio nodded, but his face was tight with worry. They were stepping into something dangerous, but they couldn't stop now. A cold wind blew through the empty streets. Cristiano and Emilio walked quietly, thinking about everything they had just learned. The name Alvaro felt like a shadow following them. The only thing they knew for sure was that Valeria had been in that bar. If someone knew what happened to her, it was Alvaro. Have you heard that name before? Cristiano asked, breaking the silence. Emilio frowned, trying to remember. I don't know, maybe. But it's been so long. My memories feel all mixed up. His voice sounded frustrated. He wanted to remember, but the years of living on the streets had made everything blurry. Cristiano took out his phone and sent a message to his contact. He asked for any information on Alvaro. They had to move fast. Every minute they wasted, Valeria could be getting farther away. Let's go back to the shelter for now, Cristiano said. I need to know more about that old man. Why did he? What did that name tell us? Emilio interrupted. Cristiano didn't answer right away. He saw the tension in Emilio's face. His whole body looked stiff, like he was ready to fight at any moment. When they got to the shelter, Dona Teresa was waiting at the door. She looked tired and surprised to see them back so soon. We need to talk to the old man who told us about Alvaro yesterday. Do you know him? Cristiano asked. Her face changed. She looked worried. He's not here anymore. He left early this morning. He didn't say where he was going? Cristiano asked, his stomach sinking. Dona Teresa sighed. He said some stories should stay hidden. Emilio's fists clenched again. Not when it's about my sister. Her eyes softened as she looked at Emilio. I understand, son. But Alvaro is dangerous. You don't want to get mixed up with him. That's exactly why we need to find him, Cristiano said firmly. She looked at them for a long time. Then she pulled a small, crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. The old man left this. He said if you kept searching, this might help. Cristiano quickly took the paper and opened it. There was an address written on it. Emilio's breath caught in his throat. I know that place. Cristiano looked at him. What's there? It's an old, empty building. A place where people hide when they don't want to be found. Emilio didn't say anything else, but Cristiano understood. Valeria might have been running from someone. Without wasting time, they called a taxi and went to the address. The area was far from the city, full of broken-down buildings. Everything looked forgotten. The air smelled bad like mold and trash. When they got there, Emilio stopped in front of the building. He looked up at it, breathing hard. If she was really here, someone must have seen her. They climbed the old wooden stairs up to the 3rd floor. The door to the apartment was open just a little bit. Cristiano pushed it open and stepped inside. His body was tense. The room was a mess. Empty bottles on the floor, a dirty mattress in the corner, and old, moldy food. Then something caught Cristiano's eye. A photo. He bent down and picked it up. In the picture, a young woman with dark hair and kind eyes stared back at him. Emilio came closer. When he saw the photo, his body froze. My God. Valeria. Cristiano's heart pounded. She had been here. But where was she now? Before they could say another word, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Cristiano moved fast, pulling Emilio to the side. His pulse raced as the door creaked open. A man stepped inside and squinted at them. Who the hell are you? He asked. Cristiano stood firm, ready for anything. But Emilio stepped forward. Where is my sister? He demanded. The man let out a low, mean laugh. Oh, so you're the fools asking questions where you shouldn't. Emilio took another step, but Cristiano held him back. We just want answers, Cristiano said, keeping his voice calm. The man crossed his arms. Alvaro won't like that you're poking around. Cristiano narrowed his eyes. So, he's really involved? The man smirked. He owns half this place. Nothing happens here without him knowing about it. Emilio's breathing was heavy. He was trying not to explode. Then where can we find him? The man looked unsure for a second. Then he scribbled an address on a piece of paper. I didn't tell you anything. And if you're smart, you'll walk away now. Cristiano took the paper and nodded. Thanks. They left the apartment, but Cristiano could feel the weight of the truth pressing down on them. They were stepping into something much bigger than they had imagined. In the car, Emilio held on to Valeria's photo like it was the most important thing in the world. I'm not stopping, Chris, he said. Cristiano looked at his friend and nodded. Neither am I. Their search for Valeria had only just begun. Now they had a name. They had a place to go. And most importantly, they had hope. The car drove through the dark streets of Lisbon. Neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavy, filled with everything they had just learned. Emilio held the photo tightly, his hands shaking. Valeria's eyes stared back at him, a reminder of what they were fighting for. The address on the paper led them to one of the most dangerous parts of the city. Cristiano could feel the tension in Emilio's body. But more than fear, he saw determination. If Alvaro is behind this, we can't just walk in and demand answers, Cristiano said. Emilio gritted his teeth. I don't care. If he knows where Valeria is, I'll get him to talk, no matter what. Cristiano sighed. Emilio was angry, desperate. He had to be careful. They reached the address, a big, dark warehouse near the water. The air smelled salty and dirty. The place looked empty, but Cristiano knew someone was watching them. Stay behind me, he whispered. Emilio rolled his eyes. Not happening. They knocked on the rusty metal door. The loud bang echoed. After a few seconds, a small window on the door slid open. Two eyes peered through. Who are you? A voice asked. We need to see Alvaro, Cristiano said firmly. The window snapped shut. Silence. Then locks clicked open and the door creaked open. Two big men stood there staring at them. Follow me. Emilio's heart pounded, but he stood tall beside Cristiano. They walked down a dark hallway into a dimly lit room. At the center, sitting behind a heavy desk, was Alvaro. The man looked older, with sharp eyes and a small smirk. Well, what do we have here? He said. Emilio didn't hesitate. Where is my sister? Alvaro kept smiling, but his eyes looked mean. That depends on what you're ready to do to find out. Cristiano frowned. What do you want? Alvaro leaned closer. Nothing is free. If you want information, you have to do something for me. Emilio felt angry. You want money? I don't have any, but Alvaro held up his hand. Not money. I have plenty of that. But I need a favor. Cristiano and Emilio looked at each other. Then Cristiano asked, what favor? Alvaro grinned. A shipment is coming to the port tonight. Some things were taken from me by people who shouldn't have. I need you to get it back. Cristiano's stomach felt tight. And if we say no? Alvaro took a sip of his drink before answering. Then you can forget about Valeria. Emilio tried to jump at him, but Cristiano stopped him. Fine, Cristiano said. We'll get your things. But if Valeria has nothing to do with this, the deal is off. Alvaro smirked. Be quick. Others are also looking for it. He gave them a piece of paper with the location. Cristiano grabbed it and pulled Emilio outside. In the car, Emilio hit the dashboard. I can't believe we're doing this. Cristiano looked at him. If this is the only way to find Valeria, we have to. Emilio took a deep breath. And if it's a trap? Cristiano started the car. Then we'll deal with it. They drove off, knowing that what happened next could change everything. After a while, Emilio asked, can we trust him? Cristiano kept his eyes on the road. No, but we don't have a choice. Emilio let out a bitter laugh. People like him always have power. People like me always get hurt. Cristiano didn't know what to say. He had never lived on the streets. He never had to fight for everything. But Emilio had. He knew how dark the world could be. They reached the port. The yellow lights shone over the dark water. The air smelled like salt and oil. Large metal boxes were stacked high. Some workers were moving things, but further ahead, Cristiano saw a group of men. They looked different. They stood near a black truck, smoking and watching everything around them. There, Emilio whispered, pointing at the truck. Cristiano sighed. No rushing in. We do this smart. They got out of the car and walked to the truck. A tall, strong man stepped forward, staring at them. Who are you? He asked. Cristiano stayed calm. We're here for Alvaro's things. The man laughed and looked at his friends. Alvaro thinks he can just send anyone now? Emilio stepped up. We're not here to argue. Give us what belongs to him and we'll leave. The man tilted his head. What if I already sold it? Cristiano felt uneasy. This was bad. Then we have a problem, he said firmly. The man laughed again, but this time he looked meaner. No, you have a problem. He snapped his fingers. Suddenly, men surrounded Cristiano and Emilio. Emilio clenched his fists. He knew it was a trap. Cristiano lifted his hands. We can fix this. Alvaro won't like what you're doing. The man shrugged. Alvaro isn't in charge like you think. Things have changed. Emilio didn't wait. He punched the man closest to him hard. Everything turned to chaos. Cristiano dodged a hit and punched back, knocking a man down. Emilio fought like someone with nothing to lose, his fists moving fast. But there were too many of them. Cristiano felt a sharp pain as someone punched his shoulder. He stumbled, but Emilio was already grabbed by two men, struggling to escape. This was a mistake, Emilio growled. The leader stepped closer, wiping blood from his mouth. Alvaro isn't as powerful as you think. You just made a big mistake. Cristiano felt cold sweat on his back. They were trapped. Then, bang. A gunshot echoed in the air. Everyone froze. A man stepped out of the shadows. It was the old man from the shelter. You two come with me. Now, he said, holding his gun steady. The men hesitated. The old man aimed at the leader. Don't try me. The thugs let go of Emilio and stepped back. The old man motioned for them to run. They didn't wait. They ran through a dark alley, hearing angry voices behind them. When they finally stopped, the old man put his gun away and looked at Emilio. Do you really want to find Valeria? Emilio, still breathing hard, nodded. Then stop acting like a hero. This is dangerous. Cristiano wiped blood from his face. Who are you? The old man sighed. A friend. And someone who wants Alvaro to pay for what he did. Emilio's eyes narrowed. What did he do to my sister? The old man hesitated, then spoke. Valeria didn't run away. She was taken. The silence was heavy. Cristiano felt his heart pound. Who took her? The old man looked down, then met their eyes. Alvaro isn't just a small criminal. He has powerful connections. Valeria was sold. Emilio's whole body stiffened. He felt sick. No, that can't be true. The old man sighed. I wish it wasn't. But if you want to find her, you'll have to go deeper into this than you ever imagined. Cristiano put a hand on Emilio's shoulder. He could feel him shaking. We will find her. Emilio swallowed hard, his eyes burning with anger and pain. I will destroy Alvaro. Cristiano knew this wasn't just a search anymore. This was war. Emilio's mind spun. Valeria wasn't lost. She had been taken. Sold. The thought made him feel sick. How could this happen? How could someone do this? Cristiano watched Emilio closely. He looked broken, like he had lost hope. Cristiano knew that look. But this wasn't a game. This was real. We need to move fast, the old man said. If Alvaro sold Valeria, she's not in Lisbon anymore. Emilio took a deep breath. Do you know where she is? The old man hesitated. I have a clue, but you might not like it. Cristiano stepped forward. We need to know. The old man sighed, lighting a cigarette. This is bigger than you think. Alvaro is just a small part of it. The real people in charge are powerful. Cristiano crossed his arms. Who are they? The old man whispered, a group called the Order. The name felt heavy. I've heard that name before, Emilio muttered. Cristiano turned to him. Where? Emilio swallowed, memories rushing back. My father used to talk about it when he was drunk. He said he owed powerful people money. I thought it was just nonsense. The old man nodded. It wasn't nonsense. Your father was in debt. When he couldn't pay, they took Valeria as payment. Emilio felt like he was going to collapse. Cristiano gripped his shoulders. We will find her. Emilio blinked, trying to believe it. How? The old man crushed his cigarette. Alvaro sells to very important people. We need to find one of his buyers. Cristiano nodded. Where do we find them? The old man chuckled bitterly. That's the hard part. He's not just a criminal. He's a politician. Emilio tightened his fists. Name. The old man hesitated, then said, Minister Eduardo Vasconcellos. Cristiano's heart started beating fast. That name was important. He was a powerful man, respected by many, but his good image was just a lie. Are you sure? Cristiano asked. The old man nodded. Yes, he is involved in everything. If you want to find Valeria, you have to go through him. Emilio took a deep breath. How do we do that? The old man gave a small smile. There's a party tomorrow night. Vasconcellos will be there. If you play it smart, you might find the information you need. Cristiano and Emilio looked at each other. Going to a party hosted by one of the most powerful men in the city wouldn't be easy, but they had no choice. Emilio gave a small smile. You have money and connections. It shouldn't be too hard to get in. Emilio let out a short laugh, but there was no happiness in it. Everything always comes down to money, doesn't it? Money opens every door. Cristiano put a hand on his friend's shoulder. This time we'll use that to help us. The old man stood up. If you're really going to do this, be careful. Alvaro already knows you're looking for him. If Vasconcellos finds out, you'll be in danger. Emilio looked at the card in his hands, thinking fast. I'll do whatever it takes. Cristiano nodded. Then let's get ready. They left, knowing their search for Valeria was about to get even more dangerous. But Cristiano was sure of one thing, there was no turning back. Emilio would do anything to save his sister, and Cristiano would stand by his side. The real question was, how far would they have to go to find the truth? As night fell over Lisbon, Cristiano knew they couldn't make any mistakes. Eduardo Vasconcellos' party was their chance, but it was also a big risk. If they got caught, they would be in serious trouble. Cristiano stayed in the hotel, trying to find a safe way to sneak into the party. He got an extra invitation for Emilio, but they needed more than just invitations. They needed a plan. Emilio couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Valeria's face. He imagined where she might be. His heart filled with anger at Alvaro. But there was something even worse. His father might be involved in all of this. He wanted to believe his father was just another victim. But what if he wasn't? The next morning, Cristiano found Emilio on the hotel balcony, staring at the city. Are you ready? Cristiano asked, handing him a cup of coffee. Emilio took it but didn't drink. How can you be ready when your sister might be with a monster? Cristiano nodded. There was no real answer to that. All day they studied the names of people who would be at the party, politicians, businessmen, rich and powerful people. People who acted nice but secretly did terrible things. Vasconcellos was in the middle of it all. A few hours before the party, Cristiano called a famous tailor and got them fancy suits. If they wanted to fit in, they had to look the part. When they arrived at Vasconcellos' mansion, Cristiano felt the pressure in the air. The entrance was full of guards in black suits. Fancy cars lined up outside. People wore expensive dresses and jewelry. "Stay calm," Cristiano whispered as they handed over their invitations. The guards checked them, hesitated for a second, then let them in. The main hall was breathtaking. Huge chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The floor was shiny marble. Waiters walked around with trays of drinks while rich guests laughed and chatted. Emilio felt out of place. He had never been anywhere like this. But Cristiano remained steady. He had been to parties like this before, at football events and private dinners. He knew how these rich people acted. "First step," Cristiano whispered. "We need to find Vasconcelos." Emilio scanned the room and suddenly froze. Alvaro was there. His heart started pounding. Cristiano followed Emilio's gaze and saw him too. Alvaro was holding a glass of whiskey, laughing like nothing was wrong. "He's acting like nothing happened," Emilio whispered angrily. Cristiano grabbed his shoulder. "We can't rush in. If we attack him now, we'll lose our chance to get to Vasconcelos." Emilio closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He knew Cristiano was right. Just then a voice spoke through the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our host, the Honorable Minister Eduardo Vasconcelos." Everyone turned as Vasconcelos entered the hall. He was younger than Emilio expected, maybe in his 50s. He wore a perfect suit and smiled, shaking hands with guests. Cristiano narrowed his eyes. He knows exactly who his friends are. Emilio clenched his teeth. "How do we get close?" Cristiano picked up 2 glasses of champagne from a tray and handed one to Emilio. "Leave it to me." They walked through the crowd, blending in, and waited for the right moment. When Vasconcelos stepped away from the crowd, Cristiano walked up to him. "Minister Vasconcelos, it's a pleasure to finally meet you." Vasconcelos looked at him, then smiled. "Cristiano Ronaldo. What a surprise." Cristiano shook his hand. "I've heard this is the most important party of the year." Vasconcelos chuckled. "I do try to entertain my guests." Emilio, standing next to Cristiano, burned with anger. This man might have sold his sister. And he was just standing there, smiling. "Minister, I heard you have strong connections in Lisbon," Cristiano said casually. Vasconcelos raised an eyebrow. "I know the right people." "Even Alvaro?" Emilio asked, unable to stop himself. Vasconcelos' smile faded a little. "Alvaro is a businessman. But what do you really want?" Cristiano stayed calm. "We want to understand how things work in this city." Vasconcelos took a sip of his drink, watching them. "Let's talk in private." Cristiano and Emilio exchanged a look. It was risky, but they had no choice. Vasconcelos led them to a small room and closed the door. "Now tell me," he said. "What do you really want?" Emilio stepped forward. "My sister. You know where she is." Vasconcelos didn't look surprised. He tilted his head. "You're bold. Tell me where she is," Emilio demanded. Vasconcelos smirked. "Everything has a price. Are you willing to pay?" Emilio's heart pounded. Cristiano narrowed his eyes. "What's the price?" Vasconcelos took another sip of his drink. "Loyalty." Emilio frowned. "What do you mean?" Vasconcelos smiled. "I need allies. Discreet people for certain jobs." Emilio's stomach turned. "You want us to work for you?" The minister raised an eyebrow. "Let's call it an agreement." Cristiano clenched his fists. "And if we say no?" Vasconcelos sighed. "Then you'll never find Valeria." Silence. Emilio knew they had no choice. Cristiano spoke. "What do we need to do?" Vasconcelos smiled. "Take down Alvaro. Ruin his business. Make him beg me for mercy." Emilio hated this, but he had no choice. Cristiano nodded. "We need information on him." Vasconcelos grinned. "You have 24 hours. If you fail, Alvaro will know you tried." They left, carrying the weight of their decision. In the car, Emilio slammed his fist against the dashboard. "We're his puppets now." Cristiano's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "We didn't have a choice." Emilio closed his eyes. "I hate this." Cristiano nodded. "So do I. But we'll do it our way." Cristiano made some phone calls. He knew people in Lisbon, reporters, business owners, and even some who worked in secret. After a few hours, he had news. "Alvaro has a secret casino in the city," Cristiano told Emilio. "He makes dirty money there. If we find proof and give it to the police, he'll be in big trouble." Emilio smiled a little. "You want to stop him without fighting?" "Exactly." The casino was in a quiet building with no sign, but many expensive cars were going in and out. Cristiano and Emilio parked far away and watched. If we go inside, we need a way to get proof, Emilio said. He noticed a man leaving the casino wearing a bright suit and holding keys. That guy might have something useful. Cristiano grinned. I think you're right. They got out of the car and followed the man. He walked into a small alley looking at his phone. Emilio acted fast. Hey, do you have a lighter? The man looked up, confused. What? Cristiano came up behind him and pushed him against the wall. We don't want to hurt you. We just need information. The man's hand shook. What do you want? Something to use against Alvaro. We know you have it. The man hesitated. If I give it to you, I'm in danger. Emilio stepped closer. If you don't, you're in danger right now. The man swallowed hard. After a moment, he pulled out his phone and showed them a video. It was Alvaro talking to another man about an illegal deal. This is enough to stop him, Cristiano said. Emilio took the phone and put it in his pocket. Now leave. The man ran away. Cristiano and Emilio looked at each other. Now we have what we need, Cristiano said. Emilio nodded. And Alvaro won't see it coming. They left, knowing they were closer to finding Valeria. But they also knew they were in danger. The night felt heavy as Cristiano and Emilio drove through the city. The video on the phone was their only weapon. But it might not be enough. People like Alvaro don't go down easily, Cristiano said, stopping the car in a quiet area. He looked at Emilio, who was staring at the phone like it might explode. What do we do now? Emilio asked. Cristiano rubbed his face. We have to make sure this video is seen by the right people. If we just give it to the police, Alvaro might pay someone to let him go. We need to show the world. Emilio thought about it. If everyone sees it, he can't hide. But if we do that, he'll come after us. Cristiano nodded. I know. But if we want to save Valeria, we have no choice. Just then, Cristiano's phone beeped. It was a message from the old man at the shelter. Alvaro knows you have proof. If you're going to act, do it now. He's getting ready. Emilio slammed his fist on the car's dashboard. He's always ahead of us. Cristiano took a deep breath. That means we need to move fast. They sent the video to a reporter Cristiano trusted. A few minutes later, they got a message back. The video would be shared with the world. Alvaro's time was running out. Then another message came. This time from a number they didn't know. You think you won? Valeria is still with me. Emilio's heart raced. Cristiano felt cold fear rush through him. He's lying, Emilio said, his voice shaking with anger. Cristiano stared at the phone before replying. We can't risk it. The phone rang. The unknown number appeared on the screen. Cristiano answered. I knew you wouldn't stop, Alvaro's voice sneered. But you made a mistake. Where is Valeria? Emilio demanded. Alvaro laughed. You think one little video will ruin me? The truth always wins, Cristiano said, trying to stay calm. Truth? Alvaro scoffed. The truth is whatever I say it is. But if you really want Valeria, let's play a game. Come find me. Alone. And if we don't? Cristiano asked. Then she disappears forever. Emilio didn't hesitate. Where? Alvaro chuckled. The warehouse by the docks. Just the two of you. If I see anyone else, she dies. The call ended. Cristiano and Emilio looked at each other. They knew it was a trap, but they had no choice. They went to the docks, heart pounding. When they entered the dark warehouse, Emilio's breath caught. Valeria was there. For a moment, Emilio couldn't believe it. His eyes filled with tears as he ran to her. He dropped to his knees and held her face in his hands. I found you, he whispered, then broke down crying. Valeria sobbed and hugged him. They held each other tightly, feeling all the pain and hope of the past years. Cristiano stepped back, giving them space. He turned to the police, who were now searching the warehouse. One officer with gray hair walked up to him. Alvaro was bad, but he wasn't the worst. Others will take his place. Cristiano nodded. He knew it wasn't over. Do you know the name Rodrigo Montoya? The officer asked. Cristiano frowned. Yes, but no one has proof against him. Why? The officer looked at Emilio and Valeria. Montoya was the real boss. He's the one who bought Valeria. Cristiano felt sick. Do you know where he is? Valeria hesitated, then nodded. I never saw his face, but Alvaro was afraid of him. He said Montoya owned everything. Emilio held his sister's hands. Do you remember anything else? She closed her eyes, thinking. I heard something about a casino in Spain. That's where they took people before they disappeared. Cristiano looked at Emilio. Then that's where we're going. The officer sighed. You've already risked too much. Let us handle it. Emilio shook his head. I wasted too many years. I won't stop now. Cristiano put a hand on the officer's shoulder. We can't wait. If we do, Montoya will disappear. The officer sighed but nodded. If you're going after him, stay alive. Cristiano smirked. That's the plan. They took Valeria to a safe hotel. She needed rest, care, and the feeling of freedom. Hours later, Cristiano and Emilio were driving through Spain. The road was quiet, but their minds weren't. Do you think she'll be okay? Emilio asked. Cristiano kept his eyes on the road. She has you now. That's a start. Emilio nodded, but he was still worried. What if Montoya already knows we're coming? Cristiano held the steering wheel tightly. So we're walking right into danger. They reached their destination in the morning. The casino was a huge, fancy building, shining under the bright Spanish sun. Men in suits stood at the entrance, their faces serious. The place felt powerful and dangerous. How do we get inside? Emilio asked. Cristiano smiled. We pretend to be players. We play. They bought chips and walked inside, acting like normal gamblers. Cristiano had been to places like this before. He knew how to act. But Emilio looked nervous. Stay calm, Cristiano whispered. If we look scared, they will notice. They sat at a poker table and watched the people around them. Then they saw him. Rodrigo Montoya. He was tall, wearing a perfect suit, and looked like he was in charge of everything. His eyes scanned the room like he owned the whole world. Cristiano and Emilio exchanged looks. Now we need to figure out how to talk to him without making him suspicious, Cristiano said. Or we go straight to him, Emilio muttered. Before Cristiano could stop him, Emilio was already walking toward Montoya. The crime boss looked up and smirked. Well, what a surprise. Emilio stopped in front of him, his hands clenched into fists. You have something that belongs to me. Montoya laughed and twisted a golden ring on his finger. Oh, Emilio, you still don't understand how the world works, do you? Cristiano stepped forward, trying to calm things down. It's over, Montoya. Alvaro is gone and you're next. Montoya only chuckled. You think you've won? I am the system. I control everything. He snapped his fingers and suddenly security guards surrounded them. Cristiano and Emilio were trapped. Montoya leaned forward, his smile widening. Welcome to the real game. The casino was silent. The smell of smoke and expensive drinks filled the air. But Cristiano and Emilio didn't notice. They only saw Montoya, the man who controlled so many lives, now staring at them with amusement. His guards were ready to attack at any moment. Did you really think you could walk into my casino and leave alive? Montoya's voice was calm but dangerous. Emilio's hands shook with anger. He wanted to punch Montoya, but he knew he wouldn't make it far if he tried. Cristiano raised his hands slightly. We don't want trouble, Montoya. We just need information. Montoya smirked, playing with his golden ring. Information? I already told you. Valeria was sold. What happened after that is not my concern. Emilio took a step forward. You know who took her? Tell me. Montoya raised an eyebrow. And why would I do that? Cristiano knew they needed a way to make Montoya talk. We know Alvaro's death hurt your business, Cristiano said. The police are getting closer to you. We can help them, or we can make things harder for them. For a second, Montoya's smile faded. Are you threatening me? You taught us how this world works, Emilio replied, crossing his arms. Montoya studied them for a moment. Then he snapped his fingers. His guards relaxed slightly, but they didn't step away. All right, Montoya said. I'll give you a chance. But on one condition. Cristiano glanced at Emilio before answering. What condition? Montoya smiled. A game of poker. If you win, I'll tell you what you want to know. If you lose, you work for me. Emilio's face turned pale. This is ridiculous. Montoya chuckled. I love games. If you want something from me, you play. Cristiano knew they had no choice. He took a deep breath and pulled Emilio aside. I'll do it. Are you sure? Emilio whispered angrily. Yes, trust me. Emilio hesitated but nodded. Cristiano turned to Montoya. Let's play. The room was silent. Emilio, still kneeling beside Valeria, slowly looked up, his heart pounding. A man stood in front of them, holding a gun. He was tall, dressed in a fancy suit, and his hair was slicked back. His cold eyes showed no emotion. But what scared Emilio most was how calm he was, like he always had a plan. Did you really think you could just take her and walk away? His voice was smooth but dangerous. Valeria trembled and grabbed Emilio's arm. That's Rodrigo Montoya, she whispered. The air felt heavy. Cristiano kept his hands where Montoya could see them, but he was ready to act. So, we finally meet, Montoya. Montoya smirked. I've known about you since you started interfering in my business. I knew this moment would come. Emilio clenched his teeth. You sold my sister like an object. Montoya tilted his head. Don't be silly. She wasn't sold. She was taken. There's a difference. Your father owed a debt and we always collect. Emilio felt his blood boil. My father was desperate. You took advantage of him. Montoya sighed, looking bored. That doesn't change what happened. And now, I have to decide what to do with you. Cristiano saw something in Montoya's eyes. He wanted something from them. You're not going to kill us, Cristiano said. Montoya raised an eyebrow. And why not? Because if you wanted to, you would have done it already. But you're talking too much. You want something from us. Montoya studied them before speaking again. You're smart. Yes, I want something. He lowered the gun slightly. Alvaro is gone. Vasconcellos is in trouble. The order needs someone new in charge. Emilio's eyes widened. You're joking. No. I'm giving you an opportunity, Montoya said. You destroyed Alvaro. Now you have two choices, take his place or die. A chill ran down Cristiano's spine. This was crazy, but Montoya wasn't joking. You think we would accept that? Cristiano asked. Montoya smirked. I think you're smart enough to know this world isn't simple. If you want to protect Valeria, if you want to live, this is your best option. Emilio stood up, his whole body shaking. You want me to become the monster I hate? Montoya shrugged. I want you to survive. And I want my business to keep running. Cristiano knew they were in trouble. They couldn't escape. If they said no, they might die. And Valeria would still be in danger. Tell me, Montoya, Cristiano said. If we agree, what happens next? Emilio turned to him, shocked. You can't be serious. Cristiano didn't look at Emilio. His eyes stayed on Montoya. I just want to know the rules of the game. Montoya smiled in a way that made Cristiano uneasy. You will be the boss here. You will make sure the money keeps coming and that the police do what we say. Cristiano nodded slowly. And if we say yes, will Valeria be free? Montoya laughed softly. If you say yes, Valeria will stay with you. But remember, no one leaves this life without paying a price. Cristiano took a deep breath and looked at Emilio. His friend looked scared and unsure. This can't be real, Emilio whispered. But Cristiano knew what he had to do. We say yes. Emilio and Valeria gasped in shock. What? Emilio shouted. Cristiano stayed calm. We say yes, he repeated. But only if I have one condition. Montoya raised an eyebrow. Emilio clenched his fists. He was so angry he was shaking. This is wrong, Emilio said softly. Cristiano put his hand on Emilio's shoulder. Trust me. Emilio took a deep breath. Then suddenly his eyes changed. He understood something. Cristiano was lying. He wasn't really agreeing to work for Montoya. He was just buying time. Emilio swallowed hard and gave a small nod. Montoya grinned, thinking he had won. Good. Then we have a deal. He held out his hand. Cristiano shook it, feeling a cold fear inside him. Give us 24 hours to get everything ready, Cristiano said. Montoya nodded. You have 24 hours. If you try to escape, you know what will happen. Cristiano grabbed Valeria's hand and pulled her close to Emilio. Let's go. The guards walked them to the door, but they didn't stop them. As soon as they were outside, they ran to the car. Cristiano jumped into the driver's seat and started the engine. The car sped off into the night. Emilio turned to Cristiano, his face serious. You lied. Cristiano glanced at him. Of course I lied. Emilio closed his eyes, then looked at Valeria. What do we do now? Cristiano gripped the steering wheel tightly. Now we stop the order forever. The car raced down the empty road. Behind them, loud voices and gunshots echoed from the house. Valeria turned to look back. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she didn't say anything. Cristiano kept his eyes on the road, his heart beating fast. We will do this, he whispered to himself. Valeria held onto the small flash drive in her hands. That tiny thing held all the secrets to destroy Montoya and the order. But they needed help. Cristiano's phone buzzed. He picked it up and read a message from Emilio. I'm safe. Go to the newspaper. Finish this. Cristiano sighed in relief. Valeria wiped her tears and took a deep breath. Let's end this. Just before sunrise, they reached the biggest newspaper in the city. A reporter was waiting outside. If this is real, it will bring down everything, he said, taking the flash drive. Cristiano nodded. Publish it. Today. Hours later, the news exploded everywhere. Rodrigo Montoya's name, along with many powerful people, was now linked to crime, lies, and kidnapping. The whole country watched as the order fell apart. Cristiano and Valeria sat quietly watching the news. Then his phone rang again. It's over, Emilio said. His voice sounded tired but happy. Cristiano smiled. Yes, Emilio. It's over. Valeria closed her eyes and let out a soft cry. But this time it wasn't because she was scared. This time she was free. The past was behind them, and for the first time in a long time they had a future. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.